Good afternoon, everyone, and happy October. It's a great month to talk about Hocus, Pocus, Focus, and the IIoT and Industry 4.0 future-proofing. I'd like to introduce Mr. John Greaves, our solution architect here at Lowry Solutions.
Thank you, Michelle, and a very good day to everybody who is listening. You may think it, of course, not unusual in the month of October that we should start with something called Hocus Pocus in the Halloween spirit. But in fact, it was generated by a client discussing their issues with myself some weeks ago. And she invoked the statement as follows, because she said, you know, John, I'm bewildered. Every day my email is loaded with what apparently I need to do as an IT SVP, what I'm not doing, how much I need to get in touch with my procurement people to identify these revolutionary new ways of doing things that if I don't do them by Tuesday, my company will implode. And I said, she said, you know, it's just so much hocus pocus. And I said, what you need is focus. And that was actually the gestation of today's presentation. And in making this presentation, we hope that at the end of it, you will, of course, have some focus. So, what is our presentation's agenda? It's in 4 words, really: to answer questions, to examine the current model, to explain a way forward, and to provide a means to go forward. It's to redraw a focus on IIoT and Industry 4. What's IIoT? Please forgive us if we start with some real basics, but you would not be surprised, as we do spend a considerable amount of our time exposed to our clients who are extraordinarily knowledgeable and aware, yet it still surprises how many of our clients, and indeed how many of the industry at large, do not grasp what IIoT is. IIoT is the Industrial Internet of Things. Historically, one might have sort of called it Industry 4, which in and of itself is an admirable model of advancement for any manufacturing engine, but it's actually a little more than that. IIoT incorporates the technology in the big data engines of the 21st century. We have to now harness more data than we ever have, but in capturing that data, we also have to do something with it. It's estimated, for instance, not estimated, but in fact reported, that big data spend by the top 4 big data providers last year up 35%. Who says so? Dan Gallagher in the Wall Street Journal just last weekend. Why? Well, because big data has become the big thing. It's what we focus on, and we're going to use the word focus quite a lot throughout the presentation. So the Industrial Internet of Things, it's the linking mechanism, basically. When we advanced to Industry 4 in the 21st century, that advancement requires that we connect, that we populate, that we map each and every thing that may be going around. So it is the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things, however, is a largely consumer-facing, consumer-based citizen engine. The Industrial Internet of Things is an operations focus. We are already in realms of exponential growth in connected endpoints that we never could have imagined, would you believe, maybe even as little as 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we were impressed if we could put 4 or 5 things together. Now we manage entire houses from afar. Well, we turn stoves on, we turn lights on, we turn cameras off and on. We are, of course, heading towards the point at which we will not even need to take a driving test. That exponential growth, however, has come with this myriad of challenges, the hocus pocus that our client referred to just a few weeks ago, where there's so many connected endpoints and so many ways and methodologies to make those connections that we're in danger and indeed have lost focus. When in fact, the industrial Internet of Things actually in and of itself has a marvelous focus-proof tool. But there are some inhibitors. What a surprise. The barriers to industrial Internet of Things, first of all, it's the complexity of the technology, we're told. Really, that ranks number one. Yet in truth, that technology is no more complex than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We are still in the same business. And that technology has actually become simpler. I'm sure there are some other than myself listening today who will remember how complex that technology really was when you used to have to take a device or a server. You had to load another tape deck on it. You had to change over the punch tape. You had to program using some kind of wonderful implementation that you really didn't know what you were doing. I'm sure, again, there are many on the call who will recall early coding, where it was, if line 1 equals 5, go to line 10. If 10 is equal to the sum of, and so on. So I do not buy the adversity to investment or the inhibitor as being the complexity of the technology. There is a complexity to the technology, but that complexity is because as over the last, say, 15 to 20 years, we have invested in, acquired multiple and myriad different technologies, many of which unfortunately do not relate or cohabit with each other, then that is a complexity that we've developed, but we've brought that largely on ourselves. And again, referring to the comment that brought about today's title, that Hocus Pocus that we've invested in has lost some of its focus, because now, in order to refresh or renew or reacquaint ourselves with the original intention, it is difficult to recall when you're up to your knees in alligators that your original intention was to drain the swamp. The second barrier we're advised is IT resources. This may well be true, in as much as information technology resources in the human term, and indeed in the barriers within an IT resource, the non-human term, capacity management and capacity investment, dealing with what to do with the data that we're gaining from IIoT, from Industry 4. Then, of course, security concerns. Now, myself, I would have placed those right at the front of this list, because I don't think there's anyone who is not aware. Certainly we at Lowry spend a considerable amount of time and effort on behalf of our clients, ensuring that their concerns about security, both the physical and the cyber security, both the intrusion from internal resources or extrapolation of data to external thieves, are carefully guarded and understood and watched for and anticipated as best you can. I suppose it all comes under the famous heading of the movie, The Russians Are Coming. Then, of course, there's a budget requirement. It's interesting that budget is shrinking as a concern, because I think at the end of the day, and certainly here at Lowry, our clients reinforce this statement and say categorically, we will need to do it. We have to do it. We have to keep pace with the market momentum. Those of you who may have listened on occasion to other Lowry presentations by some of my more esteemed colleagues will know that we dwell on the metrics of dealing with the sizing of projects and the scale of projects and the dollar cost of projects by looking at them in an entirely different way, by recognizing that the word fulfillment is now preeminent. These days, we are all imperiled, we are all focused, there's that word, on fulfillment. It is estimated today that 4 hours is your fulfillment time. That's down from 4 years when I was a boy. It took that long for the horse and cart to get from A to B. And then finally, we have the challenge of a wireless infrastructure. Why is a wireless infrastructure appearing in an IIoT outcome? The answer is quite simply because any approach to IIoT has to include what is in fact normative and usual to the market as a whole. Whether it's IoT or IIoT, you are on your Apple phone, you are on your wireless device, you are running your audience for this from a point of view of being on a Wi-Fi internet, being in an RF environment, being on your cell phone. So wireless infrastructure, whilst not finite, is certainly still being exploited and still needs expansion and still needs to be recognized as the premium, fastest, most accessible, most usable data platform that you have. So let's take some statistics, as it were. Let's take some realizing things that are happening in this world of IIoT, this world of big data. Cloudability conducted a real-world study earlier this year that had analyzed data that basically ran for billions of CPU hours, unique computing resources. But they pointed out that only 10% of the computing engine in enterprise society has actually moved to the cloud. This is, of course, very interesting because if Hocus Pocus is already prevalent in only 10% of this model, what on earth is it going to look like when it's 30%, 50%, 75%? You may recall that earlier this year, Gartner, ABI, AMR, a number of significant research bodies issued statements that you might have thought were to be taken lightly when claiming only 1% of the world's required devices to meet this IIoT phenomena exist. In actual fact, that's true. And we've got till around 2035 to figure out where the other 99% are coming from, or indeed what they look like. When we think, what did a cell phone look like 25 years ago? What did a cell phone look like last year? It's that cycle that is moving forward. So the Gartner statement and other bodies of research problems that said 1% earlier this year, we might be up at 3% now. We might be up at 5%. But wherever we are, we still have a long way to go. And most of us do not know what that device will look like or what the symbology or data encodation or syntax and all those wonderful IT words will look like or reflect or mirror. So, yet we are told artificial intelligence and machine learning are growing at a rapid rate. This is the Google world. Gartner states that the world of artificial intelligence has finally reached the doorstep of IT operations. That's an interesting conjunction of words as well. IT and operations. As we'll see in a moment, those two words are combining ever more because now IT is, in fact, an operation. It is, in fact, the operational driver of organizations and enterprises. And in supporting machine learning functionality in IT operations and in artificial intelligence, the adoption of IoT platforms has emerged as a one-stop solution. Here at Lowry, we're very proud of our steps towards this adoption and towards this ability to deliver that upgraded performance metric. Our product Scenario continues to stride into the market with great effect and huge impact on those seeking such outcomes. So now let's talk about answers, or an answer. Compelling data, compelling models, yes. You have to take them seriously, but yet where are we really going? Uptake of these changes are more aggressive than ever before. Yes, but unfortunately, so is the error rate. You see, we've acquired all this additional data, and we do not and actually have not done much about the error rate. So if you had, as perhaps in the old legacy world of barcode, about an 8% error rate. Yes, but you were only barcoding 50,000 cans of something in the supermarket. But when you're barcoding or big data mining 50 million somethings, and you're still at 8%, that 8% has a consequence that is alarming. It cannot be allowed to happen. So we really have to go back to basics. Where are we getting our data from? How good is that data? And when we get it, is it truly error-free or error-reduced? I don't think any of us are going to be foolish enough to predict that there will be no errors, a zero error rate data. Oh my goodness, we'll look forward to that. There's also another problem. That's the lack of future-proofing. How on earth can we deal with future-proofing when we don't know what the future holds, what the future may be? We at Lowry are very future-focused. We invest consistently and always towards our clients' protection going forward. We try as best as possible to enlarge and enhance and improve the manner by which we provide devices, IT platforms, size, data capture engines, so that we say, you know what, at some time, it is most likely going to look like this. So even if we don't have this now, can you please tell us how to get it in the future that does not have us be caught in a reinvestment strategy instead of an investment expansion strategy? These are important. The reality is that as global trillions of dollars are invested, the reality is that the overarching principle in this model today, in this answer, is one of a dance step. We are slow, slow, quick, quick, slow. And that's good as a dance, but it's a terrible future-proofing model, and it does not serve us well in going forward. We need to find a dance that's smoother and consistent. So, Goldman Sachs states that Goldman Sachs states that the end of next year, they reckon enterprise workloads on public cloud about 18%. Really? Sorry, they claim it'll be more than that. It's only 18% today. A third of you will have grasped cloud-based computing. How? Our experience with our client base, which is considerable, is that the required change to meet IIoT is still the greatest challenge. Even after the uptake of a cloud engine, the aggregation of data and the energized use is low. Why? Well, first and foremost, because I recall many years ago, my secretary would stagger up the stairs on a Friday with a massive printout on this green and white striped paper in big blue binders with sprocket holes in it. And this was the end of week report. And in it were things that we could rectify and re-engineer so that we could actually be better next week. The only problem is there was not enough time to read it between then and Monday to watch for the mistakes of the week that had just ended. The real future is based on the Ohio principle. It's where the rubber of IIoT meets the road of big data. The realities of human resource versus technology development. And by that, we mean developing technologies in your enterprise, deploying technologies in your enterprise, seeking technologies in your enterprise that can allow you to follow the Ohio principle. Career Builders report, recent report, 44% of companies are looking to hire full-time employees, 51% are planning temporary employees. And yet, they're unable to fill these much-needed positions because qualified talent is short. And more than half of these respondents have jobs unfilled for 12 weeks or more. Here in Michigan, as I drove up the road this morning from Detroit Airport, I noted the number of huge banners along the side of 94 and 275 and 696 and 96. Huge banners, help wanted, hiring now, positions available. This was not the case just a few years ago. most of those buildings actually were shuttered. So we now have to take on board that we have a people shortage. What is the Ohio principle? Zero human intervention operations. In IIoT, the very nature of IIoT, of Industry 4, if you read your Industry 4 chart, you would know straight away that this is the optimum outcome. Successful, cost-effective IIoT can only be based on the Ohio principle. In order to reach Ohio, you actually need to engage. You cannot build a future based on human resource. You cannot build a future based on people moving jobs. The curve is too long, too complex, and too costly. When you used to take on an employee and the task was to train them and educate them in doing an X function or a Y function, that was actually quite basic, quite simple. It was by rote, if you like an old-fashioned phrase. But in fact, many of the tasks that we allocate to people today require a complexity, and combined with legislative action, health and safety prerogatives, and we're suddenly stuck with a far deeper dimension and a far too long a curve to have people keep rotating. Anyway, just so that you know, 40% of employees surveyed said they were considering changing jobs in 2018. And guess what? They'll change again in 2019 and 2020 because the jobs are there, and because the jobs pay, and because the home comfort, and I won't even dwell on the realities that I'm sure you're all facing of millennial employment best practice. The real future is based on AIDC and robust IT, automatic identification and data capture and information technology. The challenge is that the buyers of AIDC are ranked too low. This is how we view, for our clients, the Lowry progression to IIoT. It's a proven process. We have guided numerous clients through it over the many years we've been in business. The title may change at the top of the page. It may have been the Lowry progression to barcode at one time. That was in the migration from a clipboard. It may well have been X or Y going forward. But today's progression, today's requirement in the market, what our clients look for and ask for is, tell me how to get there, John. Show me how to get there, John. Give me some guidance, John. Give me some focus. I've got Hocus Pocus. So, if you look at our proven process, you look at our stairway, you look at our path, you'll notice firmware has an arrow going to the right. That's because firmware code is really exiting as a foundation principle. Middleware is being saved, hence the symbol on the left, but it's being saved not as a foundation, but simply because the migration into an application layer, application both is considered by information technology and by application of a practical or environmental use of AIDC technology, is also upgrading its accompaniments, its process, its procedure, and its products to meet these new demands. Of course, the enterprise, which is global, is moving to the cloud, and the cloud is moving to the left because it's taking everything else with it. Explained on. Well, it's a means to future-proof your IIoT investment. An IT director, according to Glassdoor, earns a lot less than a procurement director. Yet the impact of an AIDC procurement is immediate. It's totally about focus. It's been analyzed, it's been assessed, it's been noted that it's required. And yet, I wonder if you buy the right AIDC. I wonder if we acquire, in all honesty, with integrity, that kind of AIDC, not to deal with the fact that the old whatever is broken, but in buying the new whatever, are you really sure the new is going to deal with IIoT? Or is it just simply, well, we had one of those before, so we're getting another one? We, like many companies, have been supporting the migration from Windows mobile to Android-based devices. This has been a huge shock to industry. The millions of devices that have had to be replaced, we ourselves have been very successful in supporting our clients' transition and in acquiring new clients based on our readiness and our ability to understand and to provide a comprehensive solution in that particular moment in time, that migration. There's more coming, and there will be more. The Gartner 1% model will inevitably impact legacy devices and legacy structures that will require us to match that momentum all over again. It's sort of a hardware Y2K. And AIDC procurement is the first step. It's the required upgrade to meet future-proofing, and it cannot be done in isolation. It is no longer the warehouse manager's prerogative to determine a scanning engine for barcode reading, because what he doesn't know, unfortunately, is that we're not actually going to use that barcode in 2024. We're going to use an entirely different structure because it's being mandated by a new standard or a regulation or some kind of collusion that is going to mean that those devices will be in the warehouse cupboards in 2024 instead of on the shop floor. So, what is the AIDC future? It's blockchain. And I know many of you will chuckle and say, oh no, not that word again. Actually, yes, that word again. What is blockchain? Who owns it? Where is it? Which? Why? When? These are all valid questions. And here, before we go there, is something you need before you go there. This is your IIoT pyramid. Pyramids are great buildings. The oldest surviving buildings in the world are pyramids. And they prove and continue to prove their robustness by integrating and consolidating this structure. You'll notice your client at the bottom, your industry at the top. And at the top of that pyramid is your AIDC technology, which manages, interestingly enough, those things below it. The integrated information security, the asset management, your application softwares, your MRPs and ERPs, and of course the increasing requirement, we refer to them as virtualization networks. You may require to notify them as digitization, but they are information security, information integrity driven, and that's fundamental. So explain, what is the means to future-proof your IIoT investment? You need a global multi-location strategy for your AIDC. Our clients increasingly reflect this. Our clients increasingly require this. They don't want a localized outcome because they know that sooner or later they're going to have to raise it to the level of global interoperability because of blockchain, because of IIoT normatives. We have a 6-step program, FTD SEA. If you would like to know more about our program, please feel free at the end of the presentation to reach out to us, and we will be more than happy to make an appointment with you and explain this program. What is the means to future-proof your IIoT investment? Well, you really have to recognize what is really the future. Here is the real future. Expanded AIDC devices, enlarged roles for technology, greater dependency on technology. If you think about it, you yourselves have increased your dependency on technology. You now depend on your phone for this, that, and the other. You depend on so many things that, if you think about it, you depend on the remote control of your television so that you don't have to stand up to change the station. You think that's old? No, actually, it's not that old. And now you can, of course, drive every single thing there is from your device drivers in the house. You can turn the video on, turn the video off, turn the phone on, turn the phone off. But of course, in amongst all of this, cybersecurity. We've seen examples as recently as last week that cybersecurity is far from a perfected model. One of the great things about blockchain and explaining its incredibly rapid adoption is it comes with a very sound cybersecurity. Data use. using data, how to use it. Having got the data, what is the use model? How do I disseminate that data pragmatically, practically, and swiftly so that in fact does enhance my dependency on the technology? And we have to change the manner by which we determine investment. We have to determine that investment based on change, based on IIoT, based on fulfillment. And we have to do it with a focus, not hocus pocus. Here's an enterprise layout for IIoT. Here's one that talks about enterprise asset intelligence. This is very important to anyone who is dealing with the assessment of IIoT and go forward. It's telling you basically that your enterprise has to be an asset in its entirety, and from that asset you need intelligence. You need status reports, you need sensing, you need to know where things are and how things are and if things are in place and in good order. And in so doing, we at Lowry help our clients reach that state of somewhat near nirvana, not absolute perfection, but damn close. And then let's talk about a transformational shift that is predicted not by 2050, 2070. You remember we used to get these predictions that they were somewhat like Soviet plans. You know, the Soviet 7-year plan, and at the 7th year they would say, well, actually it's going to be extended for another 7 years because we didn't quite get there. Unfortunately, those plans no longer work. You really do have to have a plan that says, by 2022, I'm in a position to make these transformational shifts, that I have this transformational shift under control. It's in my sight. I'm focused on it. I have to have a smart factory. I have to expect revenue growth. I have to predict that. I have to plan for a work in progress that has 10 or more stage gates. Why? Because the minutiae of my fulfillment, of my 4-hour model, no longer allows me the luxury of losing track of something for a week or two. I can't lose track of it for a minute or two. I have to have visibility. And my supplier quality has to match mine. In other words, one of the greatest challenges for many of our clients here at Lowry is not they themselves. It is their downstream model. It is the fact that they are, in fact, concerned about their peripherals, about their suppliers. We are now more and more frequently, increasingly, being asked by our clients not only to adapt and adopt their transformation, but also to help them help their third parties to achieve the same point of fulfillment. So, we're back at blockchain. The word blockchain has been used recently in a variety of ways. It is basically a shared ledger. But don't use the word ledger in the financial sense. Use ledger in the Victorian sense. Meaning, it's a ledger of inventory. It's a ledger of work in progress. It's a ledger of what's in the warehouse. It's a ledger of what's on the truck. It's a ledger of whether you were paid or not, of course. So it's also algorithms that decentralize that and yet secure it. It's a deployed shared ledger system. Of course, it's unfortunately already being used as a general purpose magic word, as if it's going to resolve everything that's wrong with everything. No, to build a blockchain, you need to start with an IIoT and AIDC basis that allows you to generate data that has a meticulous level of error proofing and future proofing. Then you can go to blockchain, but here's the problem. There is no time. The rate of adoption of blockchain, not that people will tell you, oh, John, that's ridiculous, blockchain, there's a few POCs around, there's a few proof of concepts, there's a few pilots. Actually, no. There are a vast number now of working blockchains. And they're not just working in isolation, they're working collectively across multiple partners within a blockchain. And those partners are finding them of incredible value. They are, in fact, highlighting the inadequacies of their old process. And that's why we at Lowry continue to ask our clients, would you please use the word now, value chain? What does that mean? It means that you're not in the supply chain anymore. Supply chain is a nice title. It implies that it's a supply chain. Unfortunately, supply chains are riddled with all of the maladies of a supply chain. Whereas if you are intent on developing a value chain, then there is value in each link of that chain. And the blockchain simply represents the capture of those values, the integrity of those values, and the continuance of those values going forward. Who owns a blockchain? You do. It's in the cloud. And basically, if you're not there, then you'll have little or no corporate future within the measurable few years from now. Which blockchain? Choose it, the most open, the most orientated. And why blockchain? In a nutshell, TAMZIB. One of the great lures of blockchain is that one of the last great structures of the enterprise are silos. There are no silos in blockchain. If I sign that document, I sign it on behalf of the sum of the whole of all of the parties to the blockchain. I do not need a qualifying signature. I do not need a secondary signature. I do not need the permission or consent of a second, third, fourth, or fifth party. And when will this happen? 2020. Yes, you heard, 2020. You will need to be in a position to at least respond to parties who come to you and go, "I'm blockchain. Are you?" A blockchain is for the enterprise. It's a unique kind of ledger. It's a shared data. It's an enterprise blockchain. These are all the points you need to be aware of. They're in this presentation that you, of course, will get a copy of on completion of this. And why would we provide? Why blockchain? I've already stated TAMZIB. I've already stated when, 2020, which is now to all intents and purposes. And how? Well, you can do it with us, with Lowry Solutions. We have been leaders in the provision of and the advancing of AIDC blockchain. We remain in that position. We have a software platform that supports that position in Samaria. And we're ready to talk to you when you're ready to talk to us about just simply starting with an evaluation as to whether or not you, your AIDC culture, your IIoT enterprise is blockchain ready. Even if you're not blockchain ready, at least you'll have the knowledge from a Lowry visit that you may not even be IIoT ready. That in itself is a damn good insurance policy. These are systems of record to systems of reality. These are how we used to look at it in these periods. What should be happening, and we built a marvelous way of telling us that it either did or didn't. A system of engagement that told us that we knew that we were doing something, but we didn't really figure out what. And now we're moving into what's really happening. It's a now system. And AIDC, our products, your enterprises require these really happening worlds, not it should have happened, could have happened, would have happened. That's Hocus Pocus. We're in the business of focus. So this is what our top plant operations technologists tell us the next 5 years hold for them. Look at it. Mobile technology, big data, location tracking, IIoT, wearable technologies, and RFID. I will tell you in truth, the word RFID is somewhat becoming passé. You need really to talk about RTLS, real-time location systems. Still achieved with an RFID platform, but in fact driven by being able to cross-reference not just the fact that it's here, but it's here and it's there, in that place, at that time, in that condition, good to go, a part of fulfillment. So, blockchain's exciting because it's data sharing. Data sharing may not be unusual to you, but believe me, vast industries, data sharing is not common or usual or typical. There are many companies that still have multiple sign-offs for a piece of data which should have reached the point of impact hours, days, or weeks ago, and then they could have done something about it. This is just a graphic for our software platform, for our deliverable scenario from Lowry Solutions. You can dwell on it at length. Again, we're more than happy to speak with you. You feel that it could provide some value to your enterprise. And this is industrial IoT, the challenges. It really is summed up as this. It's OT and IT convergence. It's operations and information technology. It's operations technology and information technology convergence. It's challenged by data security with new systems and too much access to them, plant control, moving functions to the cloud, new skills, and managing innovation, which is now cyclical, measured in year or less rather than 5 or 10-year cycles. Key takeaways from today, perhaps. Manufacturing operations face unprecedented technology-driven transformation shifts. IIoT and smart factories bring disruption, but also, if accomplished correctly, a new era of visibility. Many of our clients are benefiting from it, even now, even at relatively low levels. And systems of reality open new opportunities for operational visibility. And enterprise asset intelligence provides a framework for supply chain read, value chain visibility, particularly in food safety and in all forms of traceability. Welcome to Lowry Chain. We hope that you have enjoyed our presentation, may even have learnt a little something, or at least shared your own thought and heard it echoed off our wall. Whatever the case, please at any time feel free to reach out to us either through myself or through our headquarter office here in Brighton, Michigan. Thank you for listening, and I will pass you back to Michelle.
Thank you very much for attending. We're going to give you some of your time back today. We've got about 10 minutes. If you have any questions, please reach out to us through our website, and we'll be more than happy to answer for you. Have a great day.